Hello everybody, my name is Ashish Shukla. I'm a product manager here at Oracle. Today I would like to give you an overview of new functionality that is coming out with our Meter Solution Cloud Service 22C release. It's called Demand Calculation Rule. So thanks for joining. So the only agenda today, we have benefits and features, implementation advice, and I'm going to give you a quick demonstration on how to set this up. And it's actually quite easy to set up. Now, why do customers need this? Well, we have many customers who have multiple electric service points that are built together under the same service agreement or usage subscription. And they asked us to calculate demand at the service point level, not the usage subscription level. So, the benefit of this functionality allows users to store and use the service point peak demand values for calculations and consumers' bill presentment. This reduces implementation as well as support cost. This also helps to reduce their peak demand at the individual service point level. So what is the demand calculation rule? Well, this allows users to calculate demand at the service point level and not only at the usage subscription level. This new usage rule calculates demand based on interval data for individual service points, coincident peaks, and TOU coincident peaks. In this implementation advice section, we will go through what you need to consider before enabling this feature in your business and what you need to know to set it up. There are a few steps, but they are really simple. Customers who have multiple service points are built together under the same usage subscription. Then you add all those service points to the usage subscription. You have to assign the newly added usage calculation rule, for example, coincident peak rule, to the usage subscription through usage calculation group. On the unit of measure page, you have to configure the base unit of measure field for both source UM and target UM. In this scenario, source UM is kWh and target UM is kW. The value must be the same as the demand unit. Otherwise, you might get an error like conversion factor cannot be derived due to source UM kWh and target UM kW have different base UM. In this demonstration, I will show you how to set up the functionality for demand calculation rule. For individual service point demand configuration, you can select the identifier of the service point interval data from source UM, TOU or SQI. Here, it's configured UM as kWh. Select calculate function as individual service point demand. In results section, you can select the resulting service point curve from target UM, TOU or SQI. Here, you can configure UM as kW and also advisable to configure SQI as a value maximum for uniqueness. Common interval size must be specified to get the service point curves to a common size. After running the usage transaction for a specific date and time, you can see the usage transaction page for individual service point demand. Here, the system calculates the individual service point quantity, for example maximum kW, and publishes it for a specified date and time. For coincident peak configuration, select calculate function as coincident peak. In results section, select SQI value as coincident. After running the usage transaction for a specific date time, you can see the usage transaction page for coincident peak. Here, the system calculates individual service point quantity, for example maximum kW, and the coincident quantity for a specified date time. For coincident on peak configuration, select calculate function as coincident on peak. Also, TOU schedule is required, which can be configured or used as a TOU map template schedule. In results section, it's mandatory to select TOU as on peak schedule and select SQI value as coincident. After running the usage transaction for a specific date time, you can see the usage transaction page for coincident on peak. Here, the system calculates individual service point on peak quantity, for example maximum on peak kW, and the coincident on peak quantity or on peak kW for a specified date time. For coincident off peak configuration, select calculate function as coincident off peak. Also, TOU schedule is required, which can be configured or used as a TOU map template schedule. In results section, it's mandatory to select TOU as off-peak schedule and select SQI value as coincident. After running the usage transaction for a specific date time, you can see the usage transaction page for coincident off-peak. Here, the system calculates individual service point off-peak quantity, for example, maximum off-peak kW, and the coincident off-peak quantity or off-peak kW for a specified date time. This concludes this presentation. Thank you for watching.